Hello. Welcome back to Living in the Pacific Northwest with Hal Byrd. I'm Hal Byrd. I'm a licensed realtor and broker in the Pacific Northwest, and I make videos about what it's like to live in the Pacific Northwest, buy real estate, sell real estate, anything that you could need. So part of this channel is a little bit of our lifestyle, mine and my husband's, and then part of it is about real estate. And if that's something you're interested in, make sure to stay tuned. Today we are talking about a real estate topic. We're talking all about leasebacks. So if you don't know what that is, stay tuned. In the meantime, make sure to subscribe, turn your notifications on. If you already are subscribed, make sure that you weren't unsubscribed, because that happens all the time. And drop a comment. Let me know today what you're most looking forward to this spring. I will say that I'm most looking forward to this spring is, I'm a travel girl, so going back east that's one of the things we're doing this spring. What are you most looking forward to, dear? He's off camera. As you can see, but they can't see you.
Mm-hmm. As you can't see.
All right. What are you most looking forward to for spring?
Snow.
Somewhere. Although we met up with some potential clients in town, they were visiting, and they had gone up to Mount Hood, and they said that there was snow on Mount Hood. So maybe we'll watch the weather. We'll do like the weather watch, and when we see that it's snowing, we'll head up there. Okay.
That sounds more like it.
Okay. Welcome in. Give this video a like if you, if you're in a good mood, make me smile, basically, because, it really helps videos, and, I don't know, I hate saying that kind of stuff, but it helps, and it makes a difference, and I want more people who are relocating here to know about what this amazing area is like, and possibly work with me. I'd love to help you on your relocation. So that's covers the intro. Let's talk a little updates. The market is interesting, still challenging, and I want to preface that because a lot of times when people hear the national news, real estate is very micro. So if you think of real estate as when you're reading a national news, like anything that's on any nationwide news source, or, I get these suggested Google articles every time I open Chrome on my phone. So they're looking at real estate from a macro level nationwide, and what any agent is going to see is what's on a micro level in their market, which is a lot more relevant to you as an individual. So I am seeing an increase in inventory, which is great. Competition is still fierce, but I don't want that to let you be intimidated, because even as much competition as there is, once my clients are actively looking at homes, so from the first day that we go see a home till the day they're under contract, on average is less than 3 weeks. It varies between 14 to 19 days. I keep a pretty good tab on it, although I do have to update it because I have new clients under contract. So given that, I don't want you to anticipate spending months and months and months searching unless you're looking for a very specific property. So if you're looking for acreage, if you're looking for, I have clients that are looking for a single level home in Fisher's Landing that is over 2,000 square feet with 4 bedrooms under a certain price point. And not that that type of criteria is challenging, but the price point they want to stay under makes it challenging to find a single level that's large enough with enough bedrooms. So depending on how specific your criteria is or how narrow it is, it can be a little bit more challenging. But for most people, they're going under contract in just a few weeks. So it's competitive, but working with someone who knows how to get offers accepted can make all the difference. So, and then also working with a lender who has good reputation can also make all the difference. So those are two things you really want to focus on when you're buying or selling and then buying. Okay, so today we're talking about a leaseback, also known as rentbacks, delayed occupancy. I can't think of any other way to say it. That's what we're talking about. Let me check comments. Okay, we're good on comments. If you guys have questions along the way, feel free to drop them in. If it's not live, I'll try to come back and answer any questions, or I'll turn it into a different live topic. Also, I will note, for those of you who have been asking, there's a few of you who have been persistent in asking about buying land and building outside of a development. And I am working on some content around that and some resources and information for you, because I do have a fair level of interest in that topic, and I want to make sure that I cover it, because it's a lot more involved than purchasing a resale house or purchasing a new construction house in a development. So there's a lot of research that goes into it, and when it comes to selecting the land and then working with the builder. So I want to make sure to get that covered, and we'll do a whole series about it. So if you've been asking for it, I have not forgotten about you. Okay, so leasebacks. There are pros and cons to a leaseback. All a leaseback is that a house is sold and the previous owner, the seller of that home, remains in the house after the sale has closed. So now, once the sale closed, they're no longer the owner of it. So they are now leasing the property back or retaining possession of the property after closing while they're no longer the owner. And a lot of times people wonder, why would you do this? So I want to talk about some of the reasons why you might do it. What are the benefits? What are the risks? Both when you're selling, because I have a lot of people who are relocating. They're moving from Texas and California and Idaho and Florida and North Carolina, and they have a home to sell in the state that they're currently living in, and then they want to buy a home here. And so we're going to talk about those logistics when it comes to leasebacks and how you can utilize them or avoid them if that's what you choose on both the buying and selling side. So you can retain the possession. Typically, it makes sense because the buyers, let's start with selling. So let's say that you are going to relocate to Southwest Washington, the Portland metro area, and you have a house to sell in your existing market. You are going to want to list that home before you start shopping here. So once you list that home, you're going to start having showings, you're going to get offers, and you're going to accept an offer. When I'm advising my clients who want to minimize the amount of times that they move, for instance, they don't want to sell their home. You don't have to do everything right after another. A lot of these timelines can overlap and happen concurrently. So you don't need to list your home, sell your home, close on that home, and then move here, find a short-term rental, or even rent for a year, unless that's what you want to do, and then buy. You can overlap them pretty seamlessly and pretty close together. You can get those timelines pretty close. So, and I'll give you some examples of how this works for some of my clients. So when you're selling, before you actually list your home, you want to speak to your listing agent in your home state, or about wherever you're selling, because this could also apply if you're moving to or within Southwest Washington or the Portland area. You want to speak to your listing agent and let them know up front that you want a lease back, because they may not realize that it's a benefit to you, and so they may not bring it up themselves. And so if it's something that you want, I have this conversation with a lot of people that are relocating. I'm like, bring it up to your listing agent in the state that you're in now. And if you need help finding a listing agent, I have an amazing network of realtors all over this country, real estate professionals, not just this country, internationally. So if you need a referral, if you want to have a second opinion or have my input and my eyes on part of your purchase or part of your sale where you're coming from, reach out to me. I can put you in touch with an amazing listing agent in your market. Yes, dear?
Plus, I think there's a lot of synergies having your listing or your buying agent, as you kind of go to your next chapter, having your buying agent working alongside your listing agent, there's a lot of synergies and benefits to that.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having two separate entities, kind of having, to me, it's almost like having a team,
Mm-hmm.
you know, going and coming, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally does. So you're going to want to tell them upfront before you even list your home, like when you're having those initial meetings, when you're, signing your listing agreement, you want to have those conversations. The reason being, let's play out an example. So today is March 24th. Let's say you were listing your home on April 1st and you are going to have a 30-day escrow. You're going with a financed offer. So you might close May 1st. Or let's pretend you're listing your home today. You have showings, everything in this hypothetical example. You go under contract on your existing home April 1st. The house actually closes May 1st. So traditionally, you would have to be out of the house May 1st, but you want to buy a home here in Southwest Washington. What are you going to do? Or do you stay in your home state and rent something there, do an Airbnb there, move into a hotel? Do you stay with family? Do you come here and stay with family? I've had clients do that. Do you get an Airbnb here? Do you find an apartment? Like, there's a lot of questions and answers that you need to bridge the gap between May 1st, you're moving out of this home because you closed, and whenever you buy your house here, which doesn't have to take that long, but when you're using a traditional process, it can take longer. If you used a leaseback, you would be able to stay in the home for 30 days. I would say 30 days is a pretty common time frame for a leaseback because people can wrap their head around 30 days, 1 month. If you wanted to do longer and you are accepting a financed offer, so the purchaser of your home is going to be an owner occupant, they're going to occupy the home themselves, their lender will not let them lease the home for more than 60 days. They need to take possession. So they can only give you a lease back of 59 days because by that 60th day, they need to be living in the house as their full-time residents in order to be in accordance with their loan terms. So you can go typically up to 59 days. If the person is purchasing it as an investment property or paying cash, then they could do longer, although you really wouldn't need to go longer than that. But it is an option. There's no preset timeline. I mean, you could agree to a 1-year lease after you sold it. Maybe you just didn't want to own the house anymore, but you wanted to live there, and you could arrange that with the new purchaser. And it can be as short as a couple days. I have clients that closed on Monday and the sellers are moving out tomorrow. So they did a 5-day lease back. I think that's 5 days, 4 days, 4 or 5 days. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of it. So you would want to let your listing agent know, hey, we want to do a lease back, or we want to ask the buyers, the potential purchasers of our home for a lease back. Now in that scenario, let's say you're working with me, you're relocating here, and you want to start shopping. Once you have a contract, once your existing home is under contract, in this hypothetical example of April 1st, we can start shopping in April and make contingent offers. And a lot of people are like, well, is it better to not be contingent? Sure, but not everyone has that luxury. And I mean, you have this house to sell, it's already under contract. Getting a contingent offer accepted when you already have a pending sale or the house is already under contract or an escrow, different parts of the country use different terminology, is a lot easier than going to the seller of the home, the new home you want to purchase, and saying, hey, we want to buy this home, but it's going to be contingent and we haven't listed our house on the market yet. That's a lot harder for a seller to accept rather than saying, we want to buy your home, our home is already listed, it's under contract, inspection has already happened, or all the contingencies were waived. For some of those competitive markets, I've had multiple clients where they went under contract and the purchaser of their existing home waived all contingencies. No appraisal contingency, no inspection, nothing. It was like, we're just in escrow waiting to close. We're waiting on those final documents. So it varies. I mean, if you're moving from a less competitive market, you're probably not going to receive an offer like that. And that's not the important part. The important part is that the existing house is pending. So now when we're going to the seller and selling our contingent offer, you already have the ball rolling. It's less risky. They know when you're going to close. So you might close, in our example, May 1st. If we go out and see a home on April 2nd and you like it and it's accepted, we can close on as early as May 1st on your new home. And now there's no overlap. And if you had gotten a lease back for 30 days, you wouldn't have to move out of your existing home until June 1st. And so now you have this month of overlap where you are leasing back your existing home and you now own your new home. It'll be vacant unless you offered the seller of the home you just purchased a lease back yourself. But now you have this month of overlap that you can move, and it's less stressful, and your timelines are a lot more flexible. And if you get out early, then the new purchaser of your existing home can take possession early, and they would probably love that. So I'm going to check on comments. Is this making sense so far? This is what it might look like on the sell side. So the benefits are you get more time to home shop because now we have that 30 days of contingency that we get a chance to go to bat. Is it more challenging in this market to get a contingent offer accepted? Of course. But if you want more opportunities at bat, or if you see the right house, or you see a house that's been sitting and you're like, actually, I kind of really like this. This house has been listed for more than 7 days. Crazy. But the median days on market is 5 days. 5 days. So once you're at like a 7-day mark, that's only half of the houses that hit the market stay longer than 5 days. So when you're getting to be a week on market, in this market, it's almost considered like a house that's been sitting for a while, which is, I know, it's crazy. So that's the benefit. You get more time to do home shopping now in this 30-day example. You've got a 30-day lease back. You're 30 days under contract. We have 60 days to go find your home. And how long did I say it takes me to get clients under contract? On average, less than 3 weeks. So you have plenty of time. Even if we're not successful at any of the contingent offers, on May 1st, you're still living in your existing home, but now you're not contingent. You have your cash in hand. You have your proceeds in hand. So if you had debt that you were going to pay off with the proceeds from the sale, you have your down payment, you have earnest money, if you didn't already have those things set aside, but you're non-contingent, you've got your cash in hand. There's a lot of benefit to utilizing a leaseback on the seller side. For the sellers, I think it's great. You don't have to move twice. In my example, if we got you under contract as early as April 2nd, and let's use something not so ideal. Let's say that we got you under contract May 5th. Your house was closed. It was the first offer you made that was non-contingent. It got accepted. If you use any of my preferred lenders, either Hans Brunner with Supreme Lending or Rebecca Bustamante with Guild Mortgage, they can both close in 21 to 25 days. So if you're under contract on May 5th, we can close on May 26th, roughly. You still are within that time frame of a leaseback versus some banks are closing in 30, 45 plus days. That makes it harder. So that's another advantage to using one of my preferred lenders. So part of the benefit of a leaseback is now you're not moving twice. You're continuing to live in your home after it closes, and then once your new home closes, you can move straight from the old home to the new home without any of that transition, getting a storage unit or moving in with family or trying to find a reasonable Airbnb. And God, I hope you don't have pets, because finding an Airbnb with pets, I've had multiple clients who've had 3+ pets, and like finding anything short term it's rough. So those are the benefits when you sell. The risks would be if you have an impatient buyer, they could be hassling you and become kind of a pestering landlord. Now the buyer is your landlord. So there's a change in dynamic once your house closes. The other thing is, it's not your home anymore. You can't make any changes or any repairs. it means you're not responsible for them anymore. But, you need to remember that you are now the tenant in your home that you've lived in. It's not yours. So those are cons. Not a lot of risk or cons when you're on the selling side. On the buying side, the benefits would be you have an increased chance of your offer being accepted, especially if the seller needs a leaseback. There are a lot of times a seller might have a home that's under construction. I just encountered this last weekend with an offer that we wrote. It was not accepted. Someone came in and we knew ahead of time that this offer was like crazy above asking. And I told my clients, because their terms weren't so great after I spoke to the listing agent, I'm like, it's still worth submitting. We're obviously nowhere near in the ballpark of the price that they offered, but if we offer really good terms, maybe the sellers will be motivated by our terms, which are better than the higher offer. The higher offer ended up improving their terms, and you can't beat crazy. So we were not successful in that offer. But the sellers, the reason they wanted a lease back, which is one of the things my clients wrote into their offer, was that their new construction home that they were building out of state. So my clients in this case are coming from Missouri to Washington, and the sellers are going from Washington to, I believe, either Arizona or Florida. I can't remember. I think Florida was their retirement home, and they're building a new construction home. So it was supposed to be finished by the end of April, but with these crazy times that we live in and supply chain issues, they weren't 100% certain that the house was going to be finished. So they wanted a lease back to have flexibility so they didn't have to move twice. And my buyers were willing to offer it because one of the other benefits, besides having an increased likelihood that your offer gets accepted, is it gives you flexibility if you don't need to move right away. My clients can move they can move now, but they'd rather move in a couple months, like closer to summer. So allowing the sellers to stay a month later just means that even though they own the home, it would be occupied. They're not owning a vacant house in a state that they're not living in, with the risks of vandalism or break-ins or anything like that. So those are some of the benefits to the buyer. The last thing is that let's say you're closing in our example, I think the most recent one was May 5th, your interest rate gets locked in versus if you are waiting till later and interest rates are on an uptrend, you're locking in, theoretically, hypothetically, I can't predict the future, but you could be locking in a lower interest rate. For instance, if you had bought in December and done a 30-day lease back for the seller, buying in December, your interest rate would have been less than if you had closed in January and done no lease back. So with interest rates on the rise, that's one benefit, is the ability to lock in that interest rate. Now, all of the risk, the real risk, we talked about some of the cons of a lease back on the seller side, but remembering that the house is not yours and the possibility that the buyers are impatient, not really risk, not really that big of cons. On the buyer side, you have all the risk. You are now the landlord, which means that you are subject to landlord-tenant laws. That can be a really tricky situation depending on the landlord-tenant laws in your state. So you're risking the condition of the home. If the sellers move out and trash the home completely, you might have done a walkthrough prior to closing. You have the right in Washington to do a walkthrough within 3 days of closing. It's very uncommon that people actually do them. I always try to do them with my clients. I think it's really important, especially when they're coming from out of state and maybe they've gotten into town or they're going to be in town for closing. If they're not, then I do it virtually. But the condition of the home, you're risking that it could be in worse condition than you had anticipated. There could be damage. You're also responsible. So if the water heater goes out, you own the home, the tenant is not responsible for replacing the water heater, you are. So you're taking on those risks. The biggest risk is, what if the seller doesn't leave? What if they overstay their welcome? In our example of you listing your home on April 1st, closing on your existing home on May 1st, and then now closing on your new home on May 5th, let's say that you gave the sellers until the end of the month, until May 31st to be moved out, so that you could move in and avoid that moving twice example that we were talking about. If they don't leave, now you have a serious problem on your hands, because you're the landlord, they're the tenant. You would need to evict them if they did not leave willingly. And in Washington State, there are new laws that came into effect last May. This is, if you're watching this in the future, May of 2021, the Washington State legislature changed the landlord-tenant laws to essentially a good cause or just cause reason for eviction. So if you're just a regular landlord and you had a tenant who you had a 1-year lease with, if you were like, let's just say you didn't like the tenant, or whatever reason they were annoying you, but they weren't really breaking the lease, they weren't late on payments, they were abiding by the lease term. Even if you wanted new tenants, but they wanted to stay, you cannot evict them unless you have reason. And there's a list of about, I think it's 13 reasons that you can evict someone. Now, one of those reasons is if the owner of the property plans on occupying or moving into the property, but an eviction is expensive, time-consuming, not straightforward. You have to, it's a whole process. So there is a risk, and that's the biggest risk. What if the seller doesn't leave? All the risk is on you. And so you have to weigh that option when you're a buyer offering a leaseback. When you're a seller, I tell my clients all the time who are selling their home, ask for the leaseback. It gives you the most flexibility. On the buy side, I'm a lot more cautious. Do I love the idea of my clients offering leasebacks? No, but if the seller is explicitly asking for one, and that is the house, and there are multiple offers, which is, all of this is fairly common in Southwest Washington in this market, the likelihood that your offer will get accepted goes down quite a bit if the seller explicitly wants a leaseback and there's multiple offers on the table. One of those offers probably has a leaseback in it. And not only in this market does one of those offers, if not all of the offers on the table, and I'm not talking about like 2 or 3, I'm talking about 7, 9, 15, 30 plus offers that are on some homes. Depends on how popular the home is, depends on a lot of factors, but those are all numbers of offers that I've competed against. So not only do probably many or all of those offers have leasebacks in them that they're offering to the seller, but there are probably multiple free leasebacks. Well, what's a free leaseback? What is this? What is this free that you talk about, right? What's a free leaseback, dear?
What's free?
What's free?
I don't know what that word's supposed to mean in 2022. What's free? Maybe you can explain that to me. Free.
A free leaseback is where you allow the seller to stay for whatever the designated time is, 5 days, 30 days, 59 days if you're financing, beyond if you're, paying cash or doing an investment property, and they do not pay you rent. And is it common? And have I had a lot of clients and advised clients? That's someone calling me now. On leasebacks, yes, it's a reality. Is it on every house? Is it even on 50% of houses? No. But are there a good amount of houses that are looking for leasebacks and get multiple offers and get multiple free leaseback offers? Yes. So if you want to compete, that might be, I won't say the only way, but realistically, the only likelihood that you're going to get your offer accepted. And for some of my clients, they just can't wrap their head around it. Well, but Hal, I'm paying my mortgage or my rent that month. Why do the sellers get to stay for free? I'm offering them over asking. They should have more than enough money to pay me rent. Yeah, they should. And if you were in their shoes and you were looking at two very similar offers, and one was letting you stay for 30 days for free and one was charging you $2,000 or $2,500, which do you choose? And it makes sense. And so there's this, because of the market we're in, it's like there's the way that things should be and the way that things actually are. And it's a reality. So I would love to say that I can't wait for the market to change when leasebacks aren't a thing, when my clients don't have to offer leasebacks to have their offer accepted. So if that's something that you don't want to do, you won't be able to tell when you're looking on Redfin or Zillow or Realtor.com or my website, halbyrd.com, at homes, whether or not the seller wants a leaseback. That's something that I can see privately in the MLS. So if you have a house that you're interested in and you're working with me, we're actively shopping, you're going to send me either the MLS number or the address or the link to whatever site you're using to look for homes, or you're going to email me back because I'm going to be emailing you homes, all the new listings that are coming out that fit your criteria. And then I'm going to go on the MLS, I'm going to punch in my little keyboard and see, hey, this seller wants a 30-day lease back. Is that something that you want to do? And that's a risk you have to be willing to take. And I would recommend consulting with a landlord tenant attorney because this law in Washington is not even a year old. There are not very many lawyers who are competent or qualified to deal with the new law because it is tricky. Do I think that there should be protections for tenants? Of course. Do I think that the law could probably use some clarification or some adjustment? Probably, because it's a lot to put on landlords, a lot of risk to put on landlords, especially when we're talking about, in this scenario, when you're talking about a landlord that is just a temporary landlord for a leaseback. So that's kind of what's going on in our market. That's what a leaseback is. We talked about the pros and cons using it on the seller side and the pros and cons and risks really of using it as a buyer or offering it as a buyer when you're purchasing. So I think that covers everything. Do you guys have any questions about this topic? Do you have concerns? Are you looking to buy this year? Let me know what your thoughts are. I could even say more about it, but we're at about 30 minutes and I have appointments to get to this afternoon. I have some showings for some clients and a Zoom that I'm doing with some new clients. Part of the process as you're working with me, and I will close out with this on the back end, is you initially reach out to me, typically via text. Text is the best way to get me. You can email me, but I have so many emails from like spam, from lenders, from title companies, documents that are being signed, that sometimes it's difficult to, I don't know how people do this zero inbox thing. I don't have time to go through every email every day. That's just the reality of it. So sometimes it gets lost in my email. It is what it is. I try to get back to everyone within 24 to 48 hours via email. If you text me, title companies aren't texting me. Lenders aren't texting me. There's no document signings going on in my text inbox. So if you text me, it's a lot less likely to get lost in the shuffle, which is why I always say, shoot me a text. My phone number's right. Is it right? Am I pointing the right direction? There, I think. Or maybe it's there. Wherever it is. I can't tell what's mirrored and not. But shoot me a text. You can give me a call if you prefer, whatever's comfortable for you. If you email, I'll see it. It just might take me a little bit longer to get back to you. So we have that initial conversation. We'll either connect on the phone or via Zoom to learn about what you're looking to do, what your criteria is. Then we have a Washington home buying process Zoom meeting, which is one of the things that I'm doing today with some clients that are moving from Texas. That tells you all about the process of what it's like to purchase a home in Washington, what it's like to work with me. If you want to move forward, then we work on getting you pre-approved. Sometimes your pre-approval happens a little before, sometimes it happens after the Zoom. It just depends on your timing. And then we start home shopping, and that's the fun part. That's the part where we go look at houses. We use my Hal's home... I need more coffee. Hal's hybrid home buying process. That is specifically for my relocation clients. We can definitely talk about that. And we get you under contract in about 3 weeks, and you close and you move here, and you get to create whatever lifestyle it is that you're looking to create in the Portland metro area and the Pacific Northwest. So it's kind of a rough overview of what it's like. So shoot me a text if you have any questions. If you want to talk more about Leaseback, there are more details that I don't have time to cover here. But if it's something that you either want to utilize on the selling side, or if you end up needing or wanting to offer it to the seller when you're on the buying side, we can definitely discuss it more. So with that being said, I'm Hal Byrd. I'll catch you next time. Ciao.